Hi everyone, thanks for joining in. I'm excited to have Mercedes Mercier joining me. Hi Mercedes.
Hi, Jackie. Thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
And I think I'm right saying you've been involved a little bit before in the group. You've been our author for the day, so it's good to be back chatting with me.
I love this group. I always have the most interesting conversations with other members, and just you feel like you make friends with people because you have these in-depth conversations,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just so lovely. I always feel so supported.
No, that's great to hear. So, for those who haven't met Mercedes before, just a little bit about her. She writes Just One More Page crime with twisting plots and relatable characters. As well as writing books, she works in the criminal justice system, providing her unique insight into the world of prisons, crime, and offenders. After a brush with death, she decided to throw herself into life. She lived overseas, became a black belt in karate, skydived, and volunteered with animals. When she doesn't have her nose in her laptop and her mind in a story, she loves to read, travel, try new restaurants, and listen to podcasts, which are true crime, of course. Mercedes lives in Adelaide in a treetop home surrounded by nature and animals with her partner and her beloved dog. So thanks for joining us. And I can see you've got your book there in the back, and I've got my copy of Black Lies here as well. Um, have to admit it is a little while ago that I read it, but I know that I really loved it, along with your first book as well. So really looking forward to talking to you about it. Do you want to start off by telling us about Black Lies?
Sure. So, Black Lies, as you said, is my second book. My first book was White Noise. They both follow the same main character, but they're both standalone thrillers. So, you don't have to have read White Noise to read and understand Black Lies. So, Black Lies is set about 18 months after the incidents of White Noise, and it again follows my main character, who is a criminal psychologist who works in a prison. And her name is Dr. Laura Fleming, and she works in Westmead Prison, which is a fictional
Mm,
prison set in New South
mm,
Wales. And at the prison, there's this really high notoriety, really notorious inmate who was in on a pretty heinous crime that he committed about 15 years ago. And at the time when he committed the crime, he refused to disclose to authorities where he hid the body of his victim. Then he gets diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and is only
mm,
given a few weeks to live. And so they bring in my character of Laura to sort of sit in sessions with him in the hopes that she might form a connection with him, and he might trust her enough to finally disclose where he, hid this victim's body, and give the victim's family some closure after almost 2 decades.
mm.
But as Laura sits in these sessions with him and sort of gets to know him a little bit, she starts to think something doesn't seem quite right here. So she follows her intuition. She's got very good intuition. So she follows that. She ends up going down a rabbit hole, and she starts to realize that now she's actually in danger because there's people out there who want to keep the secrets from 15 years ago.
Mm. Yeah, they sure are. And I have to say one thing I did like. I live a few suburbs away from Westmead, so was interested that you chose that as a suburb name to put a prison in. Have you got a story behind that?
Well, because I work in the criminal justice system here in
Mm,
South Australia, I had to set it in a different jurisdiction essentially. So
yeah.
there was no sort of, conflict of interest, or anyone would read, like, pick it up and think, oh, hang on,
Mm,
that's a prison that she's worked in. So I, yeah, set it interstate in from myself in Sydney, and it was sort of an amalgamation of a number of prisons that I've been into and researched. And I was sort of doing a bit of research on Silverwater prison in New South Wales,
Mm.
and so I sort of located it in sort of around the same area as Silverwater. It's not based on Silverwater. It's just an amalgamation of a lot of prisons that I've been into
Mm.
and
Yeah.
researched. That was sort of the broad basis of where that came from.
Mm. And we said before, White Noise was your first book. When you wrote White Noise, did you know this was going to be a series?
I didn't,
You
but
didn't, okay.
no,
Mm.
no. As soon as I wrote it, I thought it could easily be a series.
Mm.
I wanted it to be a series, and
Mm.
I've got so many different ideas for different prisons I'd like to put Laura in. Like I'd love to see her in a women's prison and how she interacts in that.
Mm.
I'd love to put her in a regional prison, so she's sort of in a small town, so she's got all those small town dynamics and being an outsider as well as being in a new prison. So I've got lots and lots of
Mm.
lots and lots of ideas for her, and lots of tricky situations I can dump her in.
Yeah, yeah. So that probably we've got a few people watching, so just wanted to say to those watching, if you do have any questions for Mercedes, please type them in comments and I can read them out. I think there's a couple of people with a question that is also my big question, as I gave both of your books 5 stars, I have to say.
You.
Belinda and also Happy Valley Books, they want
Oh,
to know if there's a third book coming out and if that's going to include Dr. Laura.
I am writing a third book at the moment.
Mm.
It doesn't actually involve Laura. It's something a bit different, but
Mm.
I do have other ideas for Laura, and I will be writing them in the future. But this one at the moment, it's still a crime thriller. It's still the same genre. It's just different, yeah, different characters, different plot. It's set on a sort of a remote island. It's more of a destination thriller. So a little bit different, but it's still
Mm.
got the trademark twists and turns, and really really relatable characters, sort of in a tough spot.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait a little bit longer for Dr. Laura.
Yes, but she'll be
Yeah.
back. Don't you worry. I love her, and as soon as I start diving back into her world, it's like being like in a sort of a second skin. I just feel, you know,
Mm.
I
Yeah.
just embody her, and I just love being back. I love being back in the world of Westmead Prison as well. Like I just always
Mm.
have so much fun. It sounds strange, but I have so much fun just writing all the characters that are in there. And of course, I love Sam, who's the bit of the rough around the edges, but heart of gold correctional officer. So
Yeah.
as soon as I can, every chance I get, I put her in a scene, and
Mm.
her ballsy humour
Mm.
where I can fit it in.
Yeah. And when will your third book be out?
Doesn't have a release date at the moment, but yeah,
Mm.
I'm working. I'm working hard. I'm typing hard.
Yeah. So you're still in the middle of writing at the moment?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So still doing my routine of waking up early before I go to my job, and
Mm.
getting my words down, and then going to work, and then coming back and doing other sort of author bookish things in the evening, I guess.
Yeah. So you
Yeah,
must be very. Are you working full time in your other job?
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You must be very busy.
I am very busy. I mean, it's great. I enjoy it.
Mm.
Like I really love both. So it's not complaining, but yeah, it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it can be busy.
Yeah. And do you set yourself a goal for what you want to achieve in your writing every day or every week or?
I do. I'm the type of person that is a very regimented author. I have to set a word goal every single day,
Oh,
and
really? Yeah.
that's just because if I don't do that, then I think possibly an inherently lazy person. So I know that if I don't set myself these, these targets that I have to achieve, that I
Mm.
probably won't. I'll just sit and I'll procrastinate on social media, or I'll go read a book, or I'll put a load of washing on or something like that. So my daily word count goal is 1,200 words a day, and I'll do that 5 days a week, and I'll give myself the weekends off, um, and to sort of catch up on everything else that I've
Mm.
sort of let slide during the week, I guess.
Mm.
But often, the weekends I'll be thinking and plotting and jotting down little notes and ideas, so when the next week rolls around, I'm ready to
To go.
jump
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
flying. Yeah.
And Kim says she hasn't read your book yet, but she's keen to read it. She lives only a couple of kilometres away from Westmead, and she also has a friend who works at Silverwater Prison, so she's
Oh,
excited to
excellent.
read it.
Oh, that's brilliant. Hopefully your friend likes it as well.
Mm. Mm.
When
And
I was writing White Noise, it was during the pandemic,
mm,
and so I obviously couldn't get up to Sydney to sort of
yeah.
streets
Mm,
and all of that, which was a bit of a stress for me. So I used the writer's best friend, which is Google Maps.
mm,
And I've spent hours sort of like, clicking through the streets and walking up and down the streets, and,
mm.
camera up and down, imagining what the pavement was like, what the trees were like, what
Mm.
the houses were like. And then I finally, once all the restrictions were lifted, was able to go to Sydney and walk the streets. And thankfully, they were exactly the same as they were on Google Maps. So
Oh, that's
I was.
that's good. And Charlotte said she's read both your books and she really recommends them. She thought they were great reads. Um, Happy Valley Books says they find prison so fascinating, especially TV shows like Wentworth. And I have to say, yes, I totally agree. I loved Wentworth.
I love Wentworth, and it's
Mm,
actually pretty realistic as well. I
yeah.
think it's funny when I'm writing prison scenes, because some things I will go into a whole lot of detail about, and my publisher will be like, "Oh, people don't really need to know exactly, all these tiny little ins and outs."
Mm,
But then I'll sort of brush over something, and they'll be like, "Oh no, I think people would like to know
yeah.
what a daily routine is, or what kind of food they get, or
Mm,
what their cell looks like, that kind of stuff."
mm,
And so yeah,
mm.
it is such an interesting facet of society, and I think because a lot of the time it is sort of so hidden away from general society, like a lot of people understandably don't really know what happens inside a prison. So
No, yeah. And one thing, I'm wondering if you've done this or like that. One thing I've found that I quite enjoy recently is actually visiting old prisons. So I've been recently to Fremantle, Melbourne, and Parramatta jails, and like just yeah, being in the cells and trying to get the. Do you like that?
I love that.
Yeah.
Even years and years before I started writing this,
Mm,
Melbourne. Whenever I would go to Melbourne, I'd do the tour.
mm,
I went to Dubbo. There's a old prison, out at Dubbo. We've got
mm,
one in Adelaide where they do sort of ghost tours
mm.
and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I love it. I love seeing all the old history around it as well, and what they, how they differ to today, which is all
Yeah, yeah.
thing as
And
well.
reading some of the stories behind them all and everything as well.
Yeah,
Mm,
fascinating.
yeah. And Happy Valley Books says they love doing that as well and find it really interesting. And Kim, it looks like Kim says she's been to Alcatraz. So
Oh yes,
she thought that was interesting as well.
yes, I've been to Alcatraz. I
Mm,
loved Alcatraz, and I love the little bit of info that Alcatraz back in the day was the only prison in America that gave the inmates hot water. So
oh, okay.
they showered in warm water, and
Mm,
the idea behind that was that if they tried to escape and swim through the the freezing waters of
Oh,
the
they'd find, yeah.
they would not be able to cope, and they'd swim back. But if they'd acclimatized to these freezing cold showers, they might be able to cope with it a bit better.
Mm,
I
mm,
love little history sort of tidbits like that.
yeah. And Kim wonders if you have anything you like to do to relax in the weekends.
That's a good question. I love to read, obviously. I really love to garden. I've really got into gardening recently. We moved into a new house a couple of years ago. It's got a really big backyard, and I've always enjoyed indoor plants, but I lived in a unit before, and now I've got a big backyard. So I'm loving my veggie patch.
Mm,
I do that. I love to walk my dog. Yeah,
mm,
just sort of simple things like that. I'm trying to start to explore cooking a bit more. I'm not a great cook, but I like to go to a recipe book and find a recipe that I think might challenge me, and
mm.
then follow it to the T, because that's the only way that I know to cook and to make a recipe
Yeah.
work. If I follow it exactly.
Have you got a
But
favorite?
I love like the Woman's Weekly cookbooks. I've got like
Okay,
the
yeah,
cookbook, and
yeah.
I've got the whole range, and I find that they're really good. I love Recipe Tin Eats as well. We recently got her cookbook, and just I'm just really enjoying that. And I think it's like I just put a podcast on or some music on and just
Mm,
take that time, and I find it really creative in a way that I'm not usually creative in. So
mm, mm. No, that sounds great. And Kelly says she also loved both your books. We can see everyone watching's loved your books. She
thank
wonders if you know your twists while you're writing.
That's a really good question, because I don't.
Mm,
Because I am not a planner at all. I'm 100% a pantser, fly by the seat of my pants. So I will just, I'll, I'll sort of know the main points that, the main sort of story arcs, but
mm,
that's really only a couple of sort of points throughout the book. I don't even
mm,
really know how it ends.
mm,
Um, and so I have no idea how I'm going to get between these different story points. And so I just sit down and I'll just write, and I'll just sort of see where it takes me. And there's times where that's fantastic, and I'll go back and I'll be like, wow, it's like I set this up, but
mm.
I didn't even know that this is where I was going. But then there's times where I will have written myself into a corner, and I have to delete that
Yeah.
work. It's sort of a double-edged sword, I guess. But
Mm,
I write my first draft the full way through. I don't go back and I don't edit it as I go. Just because for me, I find getting that momentum and keeping that momentum going is what really works for me.
mm,
Um, but often I'll find that once I've gone back and I'll read the first draft of the manuscript all the way through, because I haven't gone back to it throughout the process. And it normally takes me about 4 months to write a first draft.
mm.
I'll often have changed some things, like sometimes someone's name just changes
Yeah,
halfway through
yeah.
the book, one eye color, or something like that. So
Mm,
that's the downside of just writing it really quickly and not
yeah.
going checking, because
Mm,
you don't have that sort of consistency, I guess. But it's a fairly easy fix. But yeah, I think with crime, it can sort of be tough to not plan it out. I wish I was a planner. I think
mm,
it would make the twists and the turns and the red herrings easier in a way, because I could pepper them through as I'm going, rather than having to go back and put them in. And but my first draft is actually hugely different to what my final draft looks like. I essentially sort of look at the first draft as me just telling myself the skeleton of the story, and then
mm,
I'm rewriting it in the subsequent drafts, and they are basically completely different to the
mm,
first draft. So on those subsequent ones, I can go back, and when I'm rewriting, put those clues and those red herrings in. So
mm. And do you find that the twists sometimes really surprise you?
yes,
Mm,
yes, I'll just be it's always when I'm doing something completely different, and it'll just click. Like I'll be always probably when I'm without my laptop. So I will be, either in the shower or walking the dog or down at the bottom of the garden, somewhere where I'm so far away from my laptop that's like, that this idea will come with me. So I'm dropping everything and like running back and trying to get it down before it escapes me. But yeah, sometimes like I think that is just one of those absolutely magical moments of being an author is when this twist just comes to you sort of fully formed and I'm like, wow, how did that come to me?
Yeah.
But I like your back of brain sort of working on something for for weeks or months, and then it just pops up and it feels like it's come from nowhere, but really it's been sort of percolating for a while.
And Philip's got an interesting question. He says, "Do you believe prisons can reform or act purely as punishment?"
I think prisons are definitely for reform. I think they've got their place for both. I saw a quote that said you should lock up the people that you're scared of, not the people that you're mad at. Which like they serve a very important purpose for keeping those people that are beyond sort of redemption away from society and keeping society safe. But a lot of corrections nowadays has moved away from that sort of turn the
Yeah.
key, walk away sort of philosophy, and now it's it's all about rehabilitation. It's all we got a lot of social workers, a lot of psychologists, these people that are going in there and trying to to break these cycles of crime and trying to help these people who have obviously done something pretty bad because they're in prison from doing that again, essentially, and hopefully resulting in fewer victims of crime and fewer repeat behaviour, I guess.
No,
It's
that's
a tough
yeah.
space. It's a very challenging space to be in, and the vast majority of you know inmates will be released back into society. And
Yeah.
I think corrections job is to make sure that once they're released back into society that they are better people
Yeah.
than when they came into prison. Even if it's not this perfect silver bullet of like they're fixed, they're never going to do it again. The offending happens over like a longer period of time. Each time they stay out for a little bit longer, each time they find a little bit more support. There's those sort of positives. I think that positive change that might look slow but hopefully is
Yeah.
hopefully is working.
Yeah. And Charlotte's got a great question as well. She said, do you generally write before or after work, and do you have difficulties with work fatigue interfering with your creative flow?"
That's great questions. Yes, I do. To answer the first question, I actually write really quite early in the morning. I get up and I write at 5, and I sort of write between 5 and around 7:30 ish. And just for me, I've found that's when my brain is at its best. And for me, when I wake up early, I sort of feel like the day hasn't started and I've got no pressure. I haven't had to start thinking about everything I have to get done during the day, and I can just use that time to purely concentrate on the writing. Once I've got that word count out of the way, I can relax. I'm like, okay, now I can move into the other part of my day, which is my full-time job. And yes, I can find that working full-time it can sap your creativity. It really can, because you're tired. It's a long day. It is a long day. But I think that part of why writing every single day and forcing myself to get up early and to do that 1,200 words a day helps me is because once I'm in that creative zone and once I'm in the story, it's a lot easier to stay in it rather than if
Mm,
I was sort of writing for a day and then I took a couple of days off and then I was, I wrote for another couple of days and another couple of days off. Um, for me, that would sort of break that
yeah.
creative zone, I guess. Uh,
Mm,
but yeah, I
mm,
mean that's just me as well. Like some other people can think of anything worse than getting up at 5 a.m. and for
yeah.
some people their brain is fantastic at
Mm,
11 p.m. at night or midnight. That's
mm,
when they get all their brilliant ideas. So
mm.
it's different for everyone. I think you've just got to work out what suits
What
you and what
works?
suits
Yeah.
your lifestyle as well. Like I don't have kids
Mm,
yet, so I don't have that sort of pressure of the bedtimes and the wake ups and that kind of stuff. So it's all sort of swings and roundabouts and balancing acts, and everyone's got different pressures in their life, and just
mm.
yeah, you know how to work around those pressures, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And what do you hope readers love about your books?
I hope they love my characters. I
Mm,
really like writing relatable, flawed characters that people can sort of see themselves in. Um, and yeah, I hope they like my sort of my twisty plots. Like I really enjoy putting the twists in, and I have a lot of fun with that. So I hope, yeah, my characters and the sort of the twisty plot. I think those are the two main things that I would hope readers would enjoy.
mm. And have you got any story you could share with us of anything that maybe a reader's said to you about your books that might have surprised you or inspired you?
Yeah, I have like one of my favorite stories is a woman who emailed me and said that her husband was going in for some pretty major, you know, risky surgery when they
Mm,
weren't sure whether he was going to make it out. And she was like, I needed something just to distract me and take my mind off everything while he was in the theatre. And she's like, I picked up your book, and she said it just completely drew me in, and I was just completely distracted. And she was like, I would really want to thank you because you took my mind off one of the hardest
mm,
choked up thinking about it. She was like, "Yeah, I just
mm,
you took my mind off one of the hardest times of my life, and
mm.
yeah, I just want to thank you for that." And I just thought like that was just so incredibly lovely, and yeah, and thankfully her husband was fine. He pulled through, so that was a really nice ending to that story too.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. Yeah. And it must just make you feel so, yeah.
And just to think that it's like just to think that words that I thought of in my head and I wrote onto a laptop in my little office in a little spot.
Yeah. And the people you're touching by, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
She read that and wanted, in a situation like that in her life, and I could help her through, in that sort of way. Like
mm,
that's just priceless.
mm, mm. And going back to what you said, you hope readers love about your books as well and the characters. Happy Valley Books said that they think Dr. Laura is a fantastic character. And they agree with what I said earlier that both your books are brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you. I love Laura. I've got a real soft spot for her. I think
Mm,
she's been through a lot, but she hasn't, let it sort of change who she is and how she
mm,
views humanity. And,
mm,
she still wants to get, out there every day in the prison and, do the very best job that she can. And, in the hopes that, she can prevent something happening to someone else that happened to her
mm,
without going into any spoilers. Uh,
mm, mm.
yeah, and I really love that about her, that she didn't let her experience make her sort of bitter. She sort of turned
Yeah.
around and said, no, I'm going to make sure that what happened to me doesn't happen.
Mm,
I'm going to do my best to make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to another person.
mm. Yeah. And we always like asking authors what they like to read, and if you've got anything you want to recommend to us, because we always need more books to add to our
Yeah.
list of books to read.
I've got a couple here now. I have no doubt. I don't think she will be a stranger to
Mm,
anyone.
mm,
But Candace Fox is just my absolute all-time favorite author. She can do, in my mind, she can just do no wrong. She has the most incredible plots. Like her
mm,
characters just, they could be just someone that you just met. Like she just
yeah.
way of creating a character that is so in depth that you just feel like you know everything about this character,
Mm,
which is just like just incredible.
mm. And
Um,
you've got Candace wrote a little blurb on your cover as well.
yeah,
That's pretty
yeah.
great.
I was
Mm,
very, very, very starstruck and grateful for because
mm,
I just think she's such a really good supporter of sort of newbie authors, you know, up
mm,
and coming authors, and she really, I think, prides herself on, sending that elevator back down and helping other authors
mm.
where she can. Um, I also really love Lucy Clark's books. I think she did the Hike most recently. She does, great destination thrillers.
Yeah, I
Um,
think I've read one of her books, but I can't remember the title.
yeah,
Mm,
she's brilliant. And I also recently read Joe Dixon's Shadow at the Door, which I
mm,
just loved. Like I think Joe's just an incredible, incredible author, and
mm.
anything she writes, I'll just gobble it down as well. Um, yeah, I think we're so lucky with Australian, talent that we've got. I also love Rachel Johns for out of the crime sort of thriller genre, but I love what Rachel Johns writes, and I
Have
love
you read her new book?
the other Bridget. I'm
Yeah,
so
I
excited
just
to read.
started reading that this morning.
What's it
So
like?
yeah.
Is it good?
Well, I've only just started it, but I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, heard
yeah.
lots and lots of people say how great it is, and people even saying they think it's her best one yet. So
I can't wait. I've got it on my ever growing and always wobbling
mm,
pile that's sitting next to my bed, and
mm,
it's a
mm,
good problem to have too many books to read.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I
As long
can't
as they
wait.
don't all fall crashing down on you in the middle of the night.
If that's how I die, then crushed under a stack of books in bed.
And your first two books have, like I've said this lots of times already, have done really well. People love them. Do you feel the pressure with writing more to get better every time?
I do. I do. I think I put that pressure on myself too because
Mm,
I want to feel like I'm I'm writing, the best that I can, and I always want to feel like I'm bettering my last book and bettering it.
mm,
Um, so it is pressure, but I think I the, the more that I write as well, the more confident I feel within myself.
mm,
So it's sort of it's a sort of like a strange double-edged blade. I feel more pressure, but I also feel more confident. So,
yeah.
it's always this sort of balancing act of of stress versus, um, letting yourself go and trusting yourself to
Mm,
write something. Because sometimes I'll write something and I'll look at it back and I feel like you can't see the forest for the trees, and I'm like, is
mm,
that my last one? Is this the best thing I've
mm,
read? And then I need to send it to people like yes, yes, this is brilliant. I'm like, okay,
mm,
okay. All I need is someone else to be like, yes, it is good, and then I'm like,
mm,
okay,
mm.
feel a bit better about it now.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for talking with me. It's been great chatting to you, and I hope we chat again when you have a new book out. I'll be looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for all the really great questions as well. They were really, really interesting.
Yeah, and want to thank the people who joined in and the questions they had. That was great.
How brilliant.
So, thanks everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.